guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am like all cozied up in my favorite little sweater because it's slightly cold outside and I'm fine wearing short sleeves, but I just really want to wear a sweater because I never get to in Florida, so let me live. But anyways, I'm here to talk to you guys about something that I definitely have a heart or like a soft spot for, and that is people that are in unhealthy relationships, whether they're male or female. There is a difference between being in an abusive relationship and an unhealthy one, but just because your relationship isn't abusive does not mean that it's healthy. And sure, also, for that matter, just because you're in a relationship or you had a relationship that didn't work out, it doesn't always mean that it didn't work out because it wasn't healthy. Sometimes people just aren't meant to be together. So there's multiple different facets to it, but I'm just here to talk about basic signs of being in an unhealthy relationship. And these, if they are elevated or intensified in certain senses, can become abusive, whether that's verbally, physically, sexually, any of those things. But I'm just here to address like the basics of basic signs you're in an unhealthy relationship. But this video might be a little bit hard to hear for some people if they are in an unhealthy relationship and they either know it or they kind of have a feeling that they are, or they just kind of don't want to admit it, or even for the people that have no idea they're in an unhealthy one, because I have definitely been there. But these are just basic signs to want to look out for in other people, but also to check yourself in whenever you are in a relationship. So this can be for both someone who wants to go out and help other people that have either just come out of an unhealthy relationship or are about to go into an unhealthy relationship, and maybe you can be that person, that voice of truth. So I'm just hoping that this is a very informational video for you guys, for people that are in relationships or out of relationships, or just people that want to help. So let's just jump into it. The very first sign that you're in an unhealthy relationship, and this is talking to people who are maybe in the relationship itself, is you might notice that people will make some small comments, like innocent and kind of like have no idea what's going on because they can't pinpoint it, but small comments like you've changed, or you seem different, or you are different, or you've been acting different recently, kind of thing. Phrases along the lines of that are usually first signs whenever you get into a relationship that people can see that shift that maybe starts to happen. It's usually very, very gradual, which is why it's so hard to get out of if you're in one yourself, because you don't realize what a slow fade it is. But kind of within the first few months of a relationship, if you're in an unhealthy one, something about your personality does start to shift. That's one of the main key signs, is that when you're in a healthy relationship, you should change, but for the better. Like all of your good parts about you should be enhanced while in that relationship, and all the negative parts about you should be lowered while you're in a relationship if it's healthy, because that person is calling out the good in you, not bringing out the bad. So when someone starts to say like, hey, you've changed, you're different, something like that, and they don't explicitly mean it in a positive way, that's one sign that you might be in an unhealthy relationship, because if it changes your personality, that's something to look out for. Number 2 is that maybe you have found yourself to be more secretive. Whether that is secretive about things you're doing, it doesn't have to be that extreme though. Sometimes it's just secretive about you found yourself not always open to talk about your relationship with said person with your friends or with your family. Maybe because you know that if you talk too much about it, you might reveal some things about conversations you've had, arguments you've had, how the person treats you, or how you treat the person that you're not the most proud of. So you almost just kind of try to go around and create a safety net for yourself, and it ends up becoming a wall. This is also just to say that things done in the dark usually just invites more darkness to come and sit with you, not the other way around. Usually things done in the dark clouds out any form of light, any form of goodness or purity of mind, of thoughts, of actions, and it's very hard to get out of once you're in it. So try to make sure that if you find yourself becoming more secretive, that might be a time for a call to conviction, or a call to kind of just get yourself back into reality of who you used to be and who you really were, and the values you used to hold, and do those values line up with the ones that you're presenting right now. Okay, but number 3 is that you guys bicker quite often. Now, there's a difference between just being around each other so much that maybe you guys have less of a filter over what you say, so you just kind of say whatever you're thinking, or it's just where just like everything the other person says you just don't agree with, or you just want to maybe make a comment about it that isn't supportive, or just you don't feel at all like where you're like, that did not resonate with me in the same way it did with you, like I can't laugh at that joke, or even the way that you prepare this annoys me kind of thing, like where you just kind of find yourself bickering a lot, where that can be, not to say that if you bicker you're in an unhealthy relationship, but my point is what you guys feel comfortable doing in the public eye or around other people usually means that whatever you guys feel comfortable doing, just the two of you guys, is an enhanced version of that. So if you feel comfortable around each other, bickering, disagreeing, doing whatever, making fun of each other to a certain extent around other people, then it typically means that your arguments behind closed doors are more eruptive and definitely more emotional. And that's not always the healthiest thing, especially when you're trying to maintain a healthy relationship. You know, people will argue, but not every argument or disagreement has to be very eruptive, and you shouldn't be crying on a weekly basis, whether you're a guy or a girl. You shouldn't be feeling distraught over the relationship on a weekly basis. You should be able to enjoy each other significantly more often than you feel like you might be leading into an argument sometime soon before the conversation ends. The 4th thing to look for is that maybe you've found yourself to become more anxious than you used to be. Anxiety, I take a health psychology class. That is something I'm looking to get my doctorate in, but we were just learning about unhealthy relationships and how all of those things impact our health both mentally and physically. And not only do unhealthy relationships increase inflammation levels throughout your body, but they also increase like just sustained stress hormones in your body, meaning when things are sustained like that, you start to act out more of a fight or flight response than you do of like a cool tempered response, which means you're probably going to feel more anxious more often. It doesn't mean you have anxiety. It just means that the way everybody feels anxious every once in a while, but the amount of you feeling anxious has increased and has occurred more often, and you've noticed it more often than it used to be before you were in the relationship. And that doesn't just mean anxiety about like the relationship itself. It just means like all base levels of anxiety towards everything. You found yourself to respond more out of anxiety or fearful or just kind of like that constant state of unrest more often than you found yourself to respond out of a cool tempered self or a very thoughtful manner in how you behave yourself and how you respond to things. Or you've just noticed that things irritate you or make you just feel like easily agitated to the point of anxiety more often than they used to. Number 5, and this is the big one. One of the bigger signs that you're in an unhealthy relationship is that you feel an intense need to be physical with them very often, even in small ways. It doesn't always mean you cross big boundaries into certain levels of physicality with that person, but you just feel this need that you need to be physical with them. And I'm going to explain that. So, you are allowed to feel physically attracted to the person you're dating. You should. You should want to express physical touch to them in healthy ways and healthy amounts and not cross certain boundaries, especially if you're a Christian, when it comes to levels of physicality. But what I've noticed in people with unhealthy relationships and just like other experiences I've had is just that intense need to want to be physical with them is usually rooted in a feeling of that you don't know how to communicate to them any way else that you care about them or that you're committed to them or that you like being with them, because your communication is so bad. Maybe you don't know how to talk with them without maybe thinking the day is going to end in some form of a small argument or a large argument. So if you can't talk, you might as well just show them physically because you don't know how else to act around them. Or maybe, this is also a big one, you feel the need to be physical with them because you feel like that's one of the main ways that you feel connected to them. And not that that's bad, it's just that in a healthy relationship, you should be able to communicate so well that you don't always need like daily physical affection to a certain extent to be sure that you guys are committed to each other and that everything's okay in the relationship. Your communication should be good enough to the point where you know that even if you don't see each other for a long time, or even if you go a few hours or so without showing physical touch to the other person while you're there in their presence, that you guys are still good and that they're not mad at you and you're not mad at them. Or maybe you feel obligated to show them physical touch. Like, it's not like it was forced, but you just feel as if like you that's what you should do, and that's definitely not true at all. Physical touch is a part of relationships, but it's only a small fraction. A healthy relationship is a nice balance of all the facets of showing love and expression and commitment and trust and being able to spend time with them and get to know them. It's a nice balance of it all. It's not that you need a heavy level of physical touch that is obligated in order to sustain a healthy relationship. If you feel that need, that might be something you have to check your own heart in, whether you feel insecure about yourself, like you don't know how to express any other way, or that you feel maybe that you're not enough, that your conversations and what you provide and your personality and who you are isn't enough, so you have to show physical touch or else they won't understand that's enough for them, kind of thing, or even that's enough for you. That is something, that I feel like a lot of people struggle with, girls and guys, but definitely girls when it comes to the level of insecurity. Guys express insecurity in different ways, but I feel like that's a big one to really watch out for and say, like, check yourself. Like, do I feel like I need to show them physical touch purely because I feel like maybe I'm not enough, or that my presence isn't enough for them and I have to do something with my body or sit really close to them or hold their hand constantly because I feel like my communication levels aren't enough for them in order to sustain this relationship, that there has to be a physical side. And that's simply not true, because the real thing is, guys and girls, you are enough. You definitely are enough. And no physical level of interaction should be needed to prove your worth to anyone. For that matter, you shouldn't have to prove your worth to anyone. You should just know your worth and know that showing physical affection is just a facet of being in a relationship, but it's not the main contributor. But to close out that point, I kind of wanted to maybe challenge you guys. I want you guys to ask yourself, maybe don't even follow through with actually doing it, but genuinely ask yourself the question. If you ask your significant other to not touch you physically in any way, not even hug or hold hands for an entire week that you guys saw each other, it's not that you guys would be gone, it's just that even while in each other's presence, you chose not to display any forms of physical affection, ask yourself, do you think you'd be together by the end of that week? Because I know there's a lot of people out there where you ask yourself that question and you're like, I feel like the only way I can sustain my relationship is by showing physical touch, is by sitting close to them on the couch, is by just simple things like snuggling or holding hands or hugging, because, or even more if you're at that point where if you've crossed that boundary of that you feel like you have to do that in order to sustain the relationship or to make up for any sort of argument you guys have had, that you can't just talk it out, that you have to be physical to each other to really show or solidify your apologies. And you don't have to follow through with it, but just sometimes just asking yourself that question and really thinking about the answer of what the nature of your relationship would predict so far of what would happen. Would you be together by the end of that week? And if the answer is that maybe or no, we wouldn't, then it's definitely something to think about. Because if your relationship can't be sustained and stay healthy and thrive off of just your healthy levels of communication alone, and you have to have physical touch, like you have to, in order to feel secure in the relationship, that's not a healthy relationship. Because sometimes people get busy, sometimes life gets crazy, sometimes maybe if you guys get married one day, you're not always going to have time to show each other physical affection. Maybe there's going to be a season in your life where you guys are so busy, you don't have time to really sit and connect with each other physically in any sort of level. And if your relationship's health is based off of those levels of physical attraction, then when those hard seasons come and you don't have the time or the energy, or maybe the other person gets sick or you get sick and you can't show physical affection to each other, that will rock your marriage. That will rock your relationship if the sustaining of the relationship is based on physical touch. So it's definitely something to consider and ask yourself, because, you guys are enough. You are enough just as you are, and how you communicate with the person. You can sustain a healthy relationship without showing physical touch. It doesn't mean you should. Physical touch is good if it's used well, but it shouldn't be the main tool to hold, or the glue to hold a relationship together. Woo, okay, that was some heavy stuff there. It made me sweat a little bit, but that's okay. I feel like this is definitely something that a lot of people need to hear, and something that I wished I would have heard when I was in high school, because they're very simple little signs that can be detected fairly early. And if you choose to be bold and be brave and realize that you're in an unhealthy relationship and choose to take action because you know your worth, you know that you deserve to be in a healthy relationship, it's so much easier, and it'll save you so much heartbreak rather than just waiting it out for a few years and realizing like, yeah, this isn't gonna work, and then having to heal from that. It's a lot easier to heal from like 3 months of an unhealthy relationship or a year or so than a really long sustained amount of time. It's not impossible, but it's just harder. And why make it harder on yourself if you know that it's unhealthy and the person's not willing to change to make it healthy? Because some people are willing to change, but it takes so much work. Some people just don't have that level of conviction to want to do it, and that's not your fault. But alright guys, thank you guys for watching this video this week. I really pray this helps someone, and that it maybe helps you either be a better friend, or it helps you in your own relationship, or it helps you when it comes to being wise about going into future relationships, because healthy relationships are what life is all about. Healthy community is what life is all about. We thrive. People were made for community. So thank you guys for watching. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to share this with people that you feel like maybe need to hear this, because you never know who's struggling, and who that one little text message of encouragement may really help them or change them, or start a shift in them to call them to want to know their worth and be healthy. So with that, I will see you guys next week for my next video.